24th, 2023. We will call this meeting to order, so I can scratch that one off. All right, you've got in front of you the minutes from March 3rd. Any changes, subtractions, additions, other concerns, or if not, I would accept a motion.
I move to approve.
I will second that.
I'll second. You.
Oh, no, you can second it.
I'll second for the sake of discussion.
Okay. All right. Seconded and approved. Discussion.
So was Tony on this and then you switched places with him because he was on another committee?
No, why is there a...
Because it said council members.
No, that's an error. He was on it last year.
Okay. Okay.
Good catch. I'm not even on the
Yeah.
committee. What?
Well, you're not.
I know.
But you're the chair.
I remember being here. All right.
Well,
So
but see, it says.
everything else says Duncan if you go through it.
Yeah.
I didn't even look at
But
that
he
part.
wasn't present, was he, Liz? Okay.
No, he was not. I guess, yeah, I didn't even look at that part. I just started reading that. All right. Well, I guess we'll, is that an official amendment to change that?
Yes, I will approve, or, can I ask if you
I
will
will,
reconsider
yeah,
with that approval?
I move to approve as amended.
There you go. Second.
Any other discussion or changes? If not, all those in favor say aye to approve as amended.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3-0. All right. So this is never how I like to run meetings, but here we are. Partly we needed to meet today to start this discussion again. We've had it once. We need to have it twice. I think we need to come to some resolution by the end of the year for a variety of reasons. One, so folks can know going into 2024 what the situation is. Two, so that finance can figure out what we really want them to do with the outstanding actual cash sitting in the bank of a little over $50,000. But we do need to discuss the allocation of unallocated TGT funds, all stemming from the return of the Evel Knievel funds. And I didn't know, we have a chart in front of us we can go through. I didn't know if Freddie was going to had anything to add or say before we talked about it? Or?
Not necessarily. I was just going to maybe add a little historical information regarding the TGT.
Sure.
This was established in 2015 and was estimated to be $4.8 million of additional funding in the form of an additional 1% of TGT taxes. The committee reviewed more than 12 applications and determined that 4 of those applicants will receive the following funding. Downtown Plaza, which is Evergy Plaza, would receive $3 million for $135,000. Constitutional Hall, $355,000. Jayhawk Theater, $680,000. And Evel Knievel Museum, $300,000. And in the sheet that I provided to the board, I showed each of these 4 applicants, the total amount approved, and the actual balance as of, I would say recently, as of today. The only difference that you'll see in this table is that the Evel Knievel has a total revenue of $163,000 with a total expenses of $113,000. And that is the cash the chair Duncan was referring, the $50,000, 654. And that is a portion of what's readily available that was supposed to be distributed to the museum. And the rest, the $186,000, would include the $50,000. So whatever determination this board decides, please remember that we'll have to reduce that 186 by that 50,000, and that will be the remainder future distribution for the museum. That's all, Chair.
You have questions? Yep.
I just want to make sure I understand
Yes,
this,
ma'am.
Freddie. I'm sorry. So they were awarded $300,000, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then they've used up though.
113,000, they
Right.
were distributed.
Okay.
Yes. But we received 163, so that $50,000, it's readily available.
Okay. So what's the 186?
That would be the total non-distributed funding. So the 186 plus the 113 in total expenses
It's 180.
That's right. It would equal the $300,000.
Gotcha, okay. I'm trying to make the 186 available, but only 50.
No, so there's 186 available. 50 of it right now is in cash.
Uh-huh.
The other, so 130, whatever that number is what's available over the next, I guess we have 4 years left? 24,
Oh,
25,
okay.
26, and 27.
That we have not received from the state.
Yeah, we haven't received that yet. But that, so if a project or multiple projects got it, it would be, you get X amount over the next 4 years.
So that's the,
That'll
okay.
add up to that.
Okay.
But 50 of that has already been collected, but since we have nowhere to spend it, it's just been sitting there.
I can spend it,
Yeah, oh, we can spend it, which is what we're gonna talk about here.
right? Thank you, Freddie. Just trying to make sure I'm reading this right.
And that was the other clarification, I wanna make sure, right, under all of these are still good, but only through 2027, and then beginning in 2028, the council will have to design whatever the next look of our TGT fund mechanism is, correct? Okay, so it's 130, whatever, spread out over 4 years, plus the 50, okay. Do you have any questions? Councilman Hofer?
So we have two things to decide, what to do with the cash we have now and what we do with the cash that will be coming in over the next 4 years.
Correct, and they can either be different or they can be the same entity. And that's kind of what I started this meeting by saying, don't always like to do it this way, but we talked about, at our last meeting, what we talked about was taking a look at a few things. And that was, people had some ideas, and some people have contacted me with some suggestions of various groups across the city. We took a look at, staff sent us the past people who asked 6-7 years ago, and 10 applications or whatever it was, and I think we all had an opportunity to look through those. I think what we found through those is they either got funded in some form or fashion, they've received additional funding over the last 5 years from either state or federal programs that covered their gap, or they're not around anymore. So I think, at least from my perspective in looking through those, it looked like these are not an option to basically go back and say, here's some money we didn't give you 6 years ago. So to some degree, we are back to square one. And I guess it's up to us to figure out at this point, good news is we don't have to decide today who gets the money. I guess what I'd like us to have a conversation about is what path we want to take now so we can actually move forward to decide how we want to distribute this money. I mean, obviously, previously, as these funds were given, it was an application process. I don't know if there's a lot of yays for that necessarily. There might be, and that's fine. But so I'm open to whatever. I'm throwing this out to the group for just a discussion today about ideas. Yes.
Can I
Councilmember
ask what
Ortiz.
that total is? It's the 113 plus the 50, is that right?
Yes. Hold on. Total expense.
No.
Yes. No. So, okay, so it would be the $50,000 or the $136,000, which is for future revenues that is coming up.
136?
Which is it's the 186 minus the 50,000. So that
Oh,
would be,
okay,
that would,
136.
right.
Yeah, it's-
And as the chair mentioned, I mean, you can decide if you want to use the same approach for the 50 cash now, or for the 186 in total, or for whatever method you guys want to use.
Okay. If I may.
Yes.
You know, there's some things that, I mean, I didn't want to see Evel Knievel go, and I didn't want to see us get this money back, but I've really been thinking about, since we bought the hotel, we get this guest transit money and we divvy it out, but what do we do for the people, the owners that are struggling out there? You know, I'm not saying start something new, but maybe that's something we should consider, you know, to help them so we don't end up with an empty hotel. What kind of help do they get?
Kurt's here. Kurt, you want to come up here for a second? We'll throw you into the fire.
Because I'm just saying, if they don't receive anything, we're gonna have a lot of empty hotels, and I've seen that across.
So I think the question is, if I'm a hotel in good standing, let's say with my local lodging association, right? I mean, you folks don't, outside of their private businesses, so, but you folks don't have a bid program like downtown or the one we're looking at for Nodo. And there's not a fund if somebody says, I need $10,000 worth of freshening up to keep this hotel relevant and I'm in good standing with these folks. There's no fund, right, that they can go to access money.
No, there is, you're absolutely right. We do not have anything like that set up. I'm not sure it would be something that would even be pursued by our group. I think today, in today's economy, for the most part, we're seeing some of the best results we've seen. And since I became associated with the hotel business in 2005, revenues are up. All aspects of our business seem to be up, and I don't know, and I can't stand here and speak for the group, but I'm not sure that would be something that we would be all that interested in. I appreciate the intent and the thought, absolutely.
When
but-
I look at the money that comes through, and I look at some of the people that I've talked to that have never received help, that could have just used that little bit.
Yeah.
That's what I'm concerned with.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, I'd be,
and we've never, ever put a pot aside to help them
Yeah.
owners, you know, and so whether it's with employees, if they're short-staffed with employees, whether it's maintenance, whether any of that. And I know nobody wants to give up a little piece of their pie, but I'm just wondering, in the long run, will that be beneficial?
I would be real honest with you, back during the heat of the COVID crisis, we had some internal discussions as to whether or not because there were some folks that were, as you say, were really struggling through that. We've come out of that. I just don't see that being something that we'd be all that interested in pursuing at this time. Now, obviously, I will put feelers out to the exec team and see if that's something that they want to consider. But nobody has raised the issue within our organization in the current time frame that we're in. Yes, back in 2019 or I guess 2020 and 21, when we were in the throes of the COVID, yeah, everybody was worried about how to keep the lights on. So I would be more interested in seeing the direction of this, if we're just talking about this $186,000, that we look at utilizing that in some capacity, just like we did with the original grant, as an investment and an expected ROI on that, wherever that funding gets allocated. Be able to see that it's doing something to improve the travel and tourism market in the area. Now, admittedly, $186,000 is not a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, but it could make a difference someplace. So, any more questions? You give me the microphone and I'll be up here for 15
No,
minutes.
I appreciate that, but even before COVID hit, I know there was people that I've talked to that could have used a little bit of it, and it's just something I wanted to consider to make sure, you know. So thank you, though.
Okay.
So I will ask you a question, totally
Okay.
putting you on the spot, and you can, when you think of things later, please send them to me. But I
Okay.
think, to your point, one of the things I've tried to look at long-standing events established or things in the community. Not that we don't want new things to start, but if we're going to give them 4 years over, you know, that maybe don't get some of this support, or they get a little bit from Visit Topeka, which is also TGT money they're getting, but could use more. And so I've been trying to look at what those may be, and you may have some off the top of your head now. I mean, I'll give you, for instance, I know they get a little bit. I think we forget how many people the Sunflower State Games brings in. And they now have 2 divisions. They have a senior, or 3. They have the Sunflower State Games, they have the senior games, and they have a something else games, which I should remember, you know? And obviously there were years prior, there was talks about other cities wanting to steal it. I think that's a little more, that talk's kind of gone away. But there are probably some other things out there that, for most Topekans, on a regular couple weekends, you forget that there are 1,000 or a couple thousand people here that we're not all seeing because, you know, so I think if you have, again, whether it's today or you could send us those kind of longer standing events that could use a little support.
A little stimulus.
Right, to help them advertise it, do whatever over the next 4 years. I think that would be helpful too, to give us some of those avenues to look at.
I can do that. I don't think I'd want to stand here and just
Right.
regurgitate what's on my mind right now without putting some thought into it, but I'll give you some
And the reason I
thoughts
put
and
it to you is
ideas.
because you and the Lodging Association know what's actually putting people, which of these events are putting people in a hotel and which are wonderful for Topeka and we want to keep having them, but they come to town, they do a few things, then they leave, and it maybe isn't actually driving them to pay some of the TGT funds back in by staying at a hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can be more than happy to put together some thoughts and ideas on it. So we'd be talking about, just to clarify, we'd be talking about $186,000 then over the remaining, what, 4 years?
It's 4 years, right.
4
And
years.
there may be more than one. I mean, you may look back and say, you know, because I think this conversation came up a few years ago, they didn't get, as I was looking through the applications, for instance, the Air Museum had asked at that time for, I think, $10,000 for signage. That signage makes a big difference when people are driving down the highway, and they end up getting that money. But there may be some other groups like that too who they'd love 180,000, but I mean 30,000 or 50 helps them fix problem A, which allows them to increase their visibility, what they're trying to do to attract people. And so it says, okay, if we split a third, and a third, great. We've spread it out to people who for them make a big difference.
Yeah.
So I think we're open to that as opposed to just one dump into one organization.
I think when we stood here a couple months ago, I say we, Sean and I, were both here at the last discussion. I would say, kind of repeat, what I think we said then is we're more interested in putting it towards a capital type expenditure than just subsidizing somebody's daily operation.
Yeah.
And that's where it's going to get more return on for us as a community, is if we put it into that type of an investment. But yes, I'll work on that.
No, that'd be appreciated.
But if it's on a daily and that can make and break it, we need to look at that as well, don't you think, Kurt? I mean, if we can help them along the way, just a little bit, you know,
So,
I'll take a look at it
okay.
and see if there's,
And I've always been a proponent of new too, because the new guy starting out, he's struggling too, you know. But that's just me.
well, and to your point, Councilwoman, I will say, and that had a lot of those conversations when we were doing ARPA funds. And I think what we decided too on some, making sure that those were long-term and some capital
Right.
investments is, in some of those groups, it seems silly because it's paying for item A, but that then frees up cash, so when they get those donations in,
Right.
they can then redirect, fine, we don't need a new boiler in those cases, you know, but now we don't have, donations can actually go towards what you're talking about, day-to-day operations. So I think for some of those groups, helping with the capital investment actually frees up those dollars then for operational too. So
Okay.
we'll try to keep that in mind, because that was one of those prisms we tried to stay focused on in ARPA, like, okay, wait, it really will help, it will make a difference.
all
I
right.
just want to keep an open mind across the board.
Absolutely,
You
absolutely.
know, I know some people feel like others get more than, you know, and they're doing, and I get it. I've been on the board before, I get that, but I
Yeah.
just want to keep an
Well,
open mind.
There's a lot of things to consider in something like this. And I think the big thing is we just want to be sure that we look at the ROI on what we do with it at the end of the day, so.
Perfect.
Okay?
That's
Thank
why
you.
Adam has the checkbook and not me. But I do ask him if I can spend, and he does give me those.
He does give you some? Anything else?
I don't think so. I think that covers
Thanks
it.
for what you do.
Thanks for the assist.
All right.
I do have a question about, and I know it's a separate category, Freddie and Adam. The Sunflower Soccer Fund, what is their process for approving their expenses or what they can spend it on? Because I thought at one point it was only for, and maybe this is still the case, and I know they've done a lot of work out there, so I don't want to, but I mean, I know in one case, I thought it was mostly for capital improvements only, not supposed to be for operational. And I'm not saying it is or isn't. I do not want to cast this person. I honestly do not know the answer. But there had been a period where they didn't spend a lot, and then it looks like they've been spending some, what I will say is a very consistent amount, which makes me wonder if maybe they're paying off a loan or something, but.
I will look into that, sir, and
Okay.
give you the answer in writing.
Okay, yes, Councilwoman.
And Mary, didn't we just do you remember, I thought we approved that tax percent, and did that change did it change at that particular time of what they could do and what they couldn't do? I thought it did, Spencer.
Okay.
Because
maybe
it was like
did.
so many years and they had to come back and get it approved again. Do
Okay.
you know, or do you remember?
I think there's a portion of the TGT tax that goes just to Sunflower Soccer to build the facility and to put in a sanitary sewer line, and that was like 10 years ago.
Yes.
We issued bonds for that. Well, here you can, right. Sanitary sewer and the facility, and so all that work has been done, and we're paying off the bonds for that.
Okay.
There's that. Then they came back maybe 2 years ago, and we gave them additional money to paint the fields maybe, or to
They
do
put in
some
a turf field.
turf, something like that. And so those were the funds we've allocated to them.
I probably think our next meeting will probably be early September for two reasons: to follow up on all this and try to make a few decisions, and two, if there's anything we have to approve for the budget, which sometimes happens, I want to make sure we have a meeting in there. But once we get that date, why don't we invite Sunflower Soccer to come and talk to us? And
Yeah, he's saying that.
yeah, but I mean, we could get Sunflower in here to actually give us I know they've had a couple of leadership changes over the last 3 years, and it'd be great just to hear from them and let them tell us what they're doing with all our money.
That's a good idea, and Kurt just said that TGT for Sunflower expires maybe in a couple of years. I don't know if you guys know, but it's fairly,
2032,
It's coming up.
I think Liz
It's
said.
coming up.
yeah.
So now would be a good time to hear from them.
So, yeah, I agree.
Okay.
December 31st,
Okay,
When, 30?
Yep.
2032.
End of 32.
I will not be here.
You say that now.
Freddie, don't smile on me.
So I guess the big question is, as we look at this over the next 5 weeks before another meeting, and I want to make sure, if I'm wrong on this, please tell me now. I think our sense is we would sort of rather make some decisions rather than opening up a whole application and, right? Now, anyone out there listening, and I will spread the word, if you have an organization that you think, tell us. That does not disqualify you from sending us your information and wanting to be into the mix, but I think we would rather just sort of target those organizations and make that decision, right? I want to make sure.
I would like to do that, and if there's nowhere that we feel we can do that with, then we'll have no choice but to open applications.
Okay, right. And I think we'd like to, because I think in talking with community members and getting feedback from the community and our own experiences in Topeka, we can probably figure out where the most need is that gets that return on investment and actually makes a big difference to some organizations. So, all right, so we will take that approach. So I guess your homework the next 5 weeks is put together a list, and we will come here and we can work through our list of some suggestions and recommendations and ideas from folks.
Will we get the list that was already presented that didn't get any money, or
from the first time, we already got those applications.
Okay.
They sent them after that March meeting, and I think at that point, that's when we noticed that they kind of fell into three categories. They either don't exist anymore, so it doesn't matter. Some of them got TGT money, and others in the last 6 years have found that money other ways that they requested.
So
And-
will we work off that list then?
No, we're gonna work off we can put some of them on the list if you'd like again, just to consider them. Some got it, like Constitution Hall, Jayhawk Theater, others were the Combat Air Museum. But the list wasn't that long, actually. There were several organizations who put in multiple applications for different programs, but then they either got covered or they've since folded them into what they're getting.
Okay.
So no, I mean, I think at this point, for instance, I know some groups have contacted me and just asked, hey, what about this? And those include, like I said, mentioned Sunflower State Games, as they've got some other games. I know that Washburn has looked at what they're doing with their athletic facility, which is actually bringing people in. Is there an opportunity, So I know there are some of those groups out there that at least have called me to say, hey, if you're going to have it, we'd like to at least be on that list. So I think it's just a list we can work from, and that gives us a month to go tell people we know, put it out there.
Okay.
If you're interested, reach out to one of us and let us know what your need is. It can't be any less chaotic than any other process, so. Could be more, but that's okay. Why not try it different every once in a while? Keep it exciting.
It's Monday, Spencer.
So, yeah, but then we'll get that date locked in. We'll have Liz look at something early September, and when she does, we can reach out to Sunflower Soccer. I think that would be very helpful. And then, like I said, I'm not sure. I think every year at some point, even though it's kind of locked in, although this will be different, we still have to also vote on something for the budget to make sure it's folded in there, so we can do that in September too. Since I don't think we'll have a budget, because we have to do R&R, right, before we could, yeah, so.
Don't we have to have the budget done by like September 12th?
Something,
Yeah, by the 12th, we would hope that it will be approved at that point.
yeah, that's their hope. Doesn't mean we will cooperate as a council.
No, it doesn't. But
That
maybe
is staff desire.
we better plan to meet before then.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If we try to, for like that first week of September or something, that should be time to make sure if there's any last minute stuff we need to approve, we can do it, so.
So the only thing we really have to approve right now is the 50,000.
We don't have to do that today either.
No, I mean,
Yes,
by then,
by then it'd be nice. If
And the
nothing
other-
else, it would be nice to figure out that 50,000, so that can be off the books, as it were, for this year. And then the
And
rest of
then-
the money we haven't collected yet and aren't,
if worse comes to worse, we could do that next year.
correct. That could
Okay.
be something, yep, absolutely. So yep, if it's easier to compartmentalize it that way, which makes sense, then yep, right now we're talking about 50 and that $50,000.
When you're not chair.
Yeah, that's right, fine with me. It's less pressure. Any other questions or comments, concerns on that issue? No?
Nope.
All right, I'm going to throw something out into the universe when we get to other items that I'm not sure I'm for or against, but before I do that, anything either of you have for other items? So, and I don't know that I want to tackle this year, but I promised I'd bring it up because I've been asked by a few folks, and no, it was not the lodging association or hotel owners. I'm going to make sure they don't get that. We've talked, this was actually talked about last year, which is where I think part of the conversation came. Obviously, right now, if you are a hotel operator and if you are officially with Airbnb and I think even Vrbo, they essentially remit the transient guest tax. I mean, they collect it and they remit it back. If you are not part of one of those very organized programs and you are just running a rental house, you're not remitting or collecting that tax as a general rule. It would take an act of this body, of the governing body, to basically put in some sort of system in which they would have to register and then remit the tax, make sure they're paying the tax and register the tax. So the approach to me was from some folks who were like, hey, I'm paying it, and my competition out there is getting gobbled up by all these, would the city take a look at that issue? We don't have to delve into it today. I'm just telling you it's out there. It's probably going to get asked of us again at some point, whether we take it up in this committee or whether another committee needs to take it up, we shall see. But I don't think that is going to go away anytime soon. So I'm going to put it on your radar, and we'll end up having a conversation with the Lodging Association about their thoughts on it. Yes, sir. Would you like to say something to that now?
It's just a thought, but yeah, I completely support the fact that if properties are acting like Airbnbs and collecting rent for using their rooms, they ought to be paying the transient guest tax. If they're not, they should be, but one thought for this committee to consider and maybe take to another department of the city is when somebody applies for a permit to operate as an Airbnb, that it's required that they register with either Airbnb or Vrbo or one of the other agencies that's out there. I don't know that that's a complete fix for the problem, but yes, we definitely want to see that all of the properties that are acting as a lodging facility are collecting and remitting. And I put those two together because sometimes it's easy to collect it and not quite so easy to remit it. So, okay.
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Kurt, come back, Kurt, if I may.
Yeah.
What do you consider a lodging facility? Does that also include people that are providing homes for the traveling nurses?
I don't-
There's a city and state definition, isn't there? I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but
Okay, I'll take it, Mary.
Yes, yeah, it's defined somewhere, and if this may be helpful, the city regulates Airbnb-type facilities only through zoning. We don't require that they get a permit to operate,
right.
but they have to comply with our zoning regulations.
And
So
part of it may be working with the state, because in theory, the state collects and remits it back to us.
yes.
And I know it's an issue statewide, not just being asked in this community, it's being asked in a lot of communities, because as there's been, actually to your point, but regarding construction workers, there are communities where large construction workers are coming in for periods of
Yep.
a long time. These facilities aren't all, they're not even all hotels, they're houses that are being put up, and they're not remitting any of that tax. And especially if you're a smaller community, you're saying, wait, my hotel's not half full, but I got all these people in town and I'm not getting any of that, guest tax. And so there is a statewide effort afoot to see how to address that issue. Yeah. So we're not alone in that problem.
Well, and there's a lot of traveling nurses that come in for 3 months, 2 months, 2 weeks, 1 week. I mean, they can come in from 1 week to six months, and so that's why I asked, are they in the rim of that?
And we may run into that when Polk Quincy starts building and we've got all the construction workers that come in and they're here for maybe 2 years. So yeah, we ought to get ahead of that.
So I'll take a look at what's happening across the state too, and I'll talk to the Department of Revenue and see what they're doing. So, see if I can
I'm
bring
just saying,
something
if we're gonna do it, let's do it.
No, I agree. Yeah, I just got to see what we
And
can
make
work with
sure.
Mary, see what is in our purview or what we have to maybe add to our legislative agenda. See which of those avenues we need to go.
Give Mary something to do. So she doesn't leave us.
All right, well, that was the only other item I had. Anything else from staff you want to put in front of us? Or, all right. Anything from you, council member, anything? All right, well, with that, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
I think I did enough damage.
Yeah.
Yes, don't turn on.
That one does.